You know, I've heard many professionals assert that fear is unfounded. That is a lot of nonsense. Dread is so genuine that there are definitely things you are currently frightened to do in your life, in your relationships, or at work. This fear is keeping you from having all of the experiences you want to have in life. If you're afraid of flying, for example, that will limit your ability to travel, see the world, or visit friends. If you're afraid of public speaking, on the other hand, that will really limit your ability to express yourself and share your ideas. If you're afraid to approach your boss or ask for a raise, that will directly affect how much money you make. And what if you want to start a business or have already started one, but you're afraid to approach customers? Fear is real, but I'm going to reveal a secret technique I've been doing for years to overcome every single fear that had previously held me back. Now, I simply want to address a few facts regarding fear before we get into the hidden weapon. What's it for? What fear isn't, as well as a few other facts you might not be aware of. First of all, fear causes the same physical sensation in your body as exhilaration. Let me reiterate that fear and excitement share the exact same physiological state. Your heart races, you might start to sweat, your chest tightens, you might feel a pit in your stomach, and your cortisol levels spike. This is basically how your body enters a hyper-aware state because it is scanning for action. The only distinction between fear and excitement is what your brain is doing. If you're excited, you can say something like, "Oh wow, riding this roller coaster is going to be so awesome." The key to understanding this is that we're going to use the fact that your mind is either working for you when you're excited or against you when you're afraid to your advantage. If you're afraid, your brain is telling you there's no way you're doing that, this is dangerous, get out of there, don't do that, and other similar things. In a moment, I'll explain how you can go about doing that. The second thing I want you to understand is that even though you may have received the advice, you should still act on it despite your anxiety. Oh, just try to relax and think happy thoughts, doesn't that work? Therefore there is a cause for why it fails. Let's revisit the first fact. What does it feel like to be peaceful when your body isn't in a state of arousal and agitation, your heart isn't racing, you're all pumped up and super aware of what's happening, and you're freaking out a little bit? You just sort of relaxed into this aroused state after using the restroom. It is quite challenging to transition from an agitated, jacked up, enthusiastic, and weirded out appearance to a kind of state. It won't work. If you try to stop a train by tossing a boulder in its path, the train will veer off the tracks and a catastrophe will result. In fact, research has demonstrated that trying to suppress your concerns only makes them worse. Even just thinking positively can make your fears come true. What do you do then? What should you do if you're about to speak to your boss and feel nervous? What should you do if you need to board a plane but are truly terrified of flying? What should you do if you need to deliver a presentation but are nervous about speaking in front of a group? Here's what you should do. You're going to employ a technique that I employ and that has assisted me in overcoming all of my fears and transforming myself into a fantastic person. This is how you behave in a high-stress circumstance. You're going to apply my 5-second rule together with what I refer to as an anchor thought, and it will reframe what your mind is doing so that it shifts from making you anxious and fearful to getting you excited instead. It will work like magic. I have been using this method for years, literally years, and one of the ways I want to introduce it to you is how I utilize it. I want to take you behind the scenes. I'm going to take you backstage to a speech I gave this year. As I'm about to walk out, you can kind of hear the audience cheering. My introductory video is playing. My body is literally in a state of arousal. My heart is racing, and my arms are perspiring. It's like, you're going to see this. I'm going to tell you about it, and you're going to watch me use this same technique. Check out how I'm going to teach you to turn your anxiety into joy. Okay, I'm ready to go the stage. There are 7,000 people there, and it's exciting because they are about to learn the 5-second rule, which will change their lives forever. Now I must confess that, despite not being terrified, my heart is pounding and my armpits are sweating. I have the exact same physiological symptoms as when I am afraid. I'm eager. The only difference between exhilaration and terror in your body is what your brain refers to them as. Here's a technique I employ every time I talk and which has been supported by science. I declare myself to be enthusiastic when I begin to perspire, have butterflies, or feel my heart racing. I'm eager to speak because I'm eager to get on the public stage. The 5-second rule helps me avoid feeling terrified because it provides a message to my brain explaining why my body is acting so frantic and enthusiastic. Recall that the only difference between excitement and fear in your body is the effect that your brain has on both. Many of you have written to me about your fear of flying, and I can definitely identify to that worry because I once had the same dread. However, I want to offer you one more example to make sure you really understand how you may use this. But I overcame it using the same method. First things first, if you have to do something that really makes you anxious or something you're frightened to do it before you actually do it. Create an anchor idea. What is an anchor idea? When you anchor yourself, you keep control over what you're thinking and how you behave. This prevents any situation from spiraling out of control and turning into a full-blown panic attack or a circumstance where you mess things up. So let's use flying as an example. It's crucial to choose a thought that makes sense in the context of the thing you're frightened to do. So, when flying, choose an anchor thought that is related to the trip you're taking. For example, if I'm boarding a plane to fly back to Michigan, my anchor thought might be a mental image of my mom and I strolling along the shores of Lake Michigan, where I grew up. This is a happy, exciting thought that is also connected to the trip I'm taking. If you need to speak with your boss, choose an anchor thought about how you will feel afterward. It could be picking up the phone and telling someone you love, "Oh my gosh, it went so well," or it could be leaving the meeting feeling like, "I made it through that conversation, and I feel pretty good about myself." You are now prepared to overcome your fear since you have your anchor idea. This is how you're going to go about it, so let's return to the plane as an example. I'm on an aircraft headed to Michigan when we experience turbulence, and as my body begins to become agitated, my heart begins to race. I have no control over how my body may feel, but I always have complete control over what I think about and how I behave. And you too can. So when I'm on a plane and there is turbulence, I must follow the 5-second rule, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. This is the first and most important step, and the reason it is so important is that it switches your mind into gear by waking up your prefrontal cortex and signaling your brain that you are now in control of your thoughts, having interrupted the fear and calming your thoughts. Now that your brain is prepared, I recommend inserting the anchor idea you came up with before the flight. I start thinking about strolling on the beach and seeing my parents, and I tell myself things like, "I'm so happy to walk on the shores of Lake Michigan, I'm so excited to see my parents." Now that you've stopped the dread, we've utilized the 5-second rule to exert control and activate your prefrontal cortex, and you have an image that can textually make meaning to your brain. Since you're flying to Michigan, you know your brain does, something extraordinary is about to happen in your brain. Your body is in the remember the first truth that fear and excitement are the same thing stage, which causes your brain to think, that was excited to go to Michigan. What's the distinction between enthusiasm and fear? What is being spoken by your brain? The 5-second rule can be used as an anchor thought to shift your mental state from one of dread to one of enthusiasm. Because your vision makes sense in the context of what you're doing, your brain accepts it. Your mind has just been duped. Now that Dana has adopted this technique, she claims that neither she nor Sarah has ever flown with such serenity. Although Sarah Rosa was terrified of flying, she used the 5-second rule in the following manner. 5 4 3 2 1. Not only was the tour fantastic, but this is what truly stands out. If fear prevents you, this will transform your life. For those of you who are apprehensive about public speaking, use the 5-second rule anchor thought approach I just described to shift your perspective from dread to joy. A life goal and item from her bucket list were both accomplished when she overcame her fear and spoke to her nursing colleagues. It was an incredible event that had happened. Fear is genuine. You can't control the emotions that will arise in your body when you're on a plane, conversing with your boss, or when you see someone who is attractive and you really want to go over and talk to that person, but you can always control your thoughts and your actions. The next time you feel afraid, therefore, 5 4 3 2 1, go to that anchor thought, tell yourself you're excited, and that, my friend, is the answer. We appreciate your interest and encourage you to click the notification button.